Shalom, and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of a Rosh Hashanah sermon with Rabbi Rebecca Schatz.
We are in the midst of an existential crisis, an unraveling of self, a profound disassociation between who we truly are and how we are perceived. The lines between personal reputation and reality of self are blurring, and the cost of the resulting disconnection is higher than ever. We are seeing a growing dependence on likes and shares at the expense of thoughtfulness and meaning. Author and tech executive Michael Furtick calls this the reputation economy. The trade-off is salvaging a reputation instead of repairing one's character. This theory is the reality of living in a world that puts a premium on preserving your image at the expense of improving yourself. If there are two applicants for a job, and one has a lived experience of growth in that field of work, but the other has spent way more time connecting with people on LinkedIn, who gets hired? Who is judging us, and by what criteria? As children, when any of my brothers and I argued, my dad would often say, "It is better to be nice than right." More important than being correct and proving that your position is superior, it is without a doubt better to be kind, to leave room for others' ideas. In our reputation economy, we are mostly concerned with convincing others that we are right. We live in a world where I am sure that my political views, my understanding of Israel's challenges, my perspective on parenting, my culture, my Judaism, my faith is right. I'm right. And I'm sure if I agree with you, you're also right. But if I disagree with you, you must be wrong. Of course, I'm over-dramatizing this idea to make a strong point, but it's not too far off from the way that we interact around controversial topics. When clicking a like or a share or a thumbs up, a person is bluntly labeling others as right or wrong, good or bad. Of course, there are accepted rules and recognized ideals of right and wrong. Green means go, though not always in Los Angeles. Do not hate, etc. And one would expect that if you did murder, you would get a lower personal score in our reputation economy. But judging a person based narrowly on their appearance or by their political opinion or by nuanced cultural mannerisms, we've done harm to both them and to ourselves. It is not kind, whether or not you are right. What if instead of trying to get others to agree with us or validate our worth, we spent that energy on bettering ourselves? What if our reputation was not shaped by others' fleeting opinions, but by the actions we take, the choices we make, and the person we strive to become every day? What if I worked on myself and I judged myself before others? Beating our chests and not focusing on another's al-khait, for an example. Rosh Hashanah is Yom Hadin, the day of judgment. We recognize that God is judging our actions, thoughts, and behaviors. However, are we judging ourselves? Are we to judge others? What's the metric of our soul? While teaching one of my midrashah classes on Friday morning, one of the students suggested that the most powerful part of the al-khait or ashamnu practice of beating your chest is that we do it in front of others. Not to embarrass ourselves, but actually as a reminder that even those who we see having no faults or flaws are also beating their chests. Those who we hold in such high regard are also pounding their chests, just as we pound ours. And someone is hopefully looking at us and thinking, wow, why does that person need to be beating their chest? The irony is that we can hide behind everyone doing the same thing. No one knows which of that list I did versus the others I still have my fist on my heart for. But I do. And that's where the change can be made. We judge ourselves more harshly than necessary and probably more harshly than others judge us. However, we also judge unfairly, based on differences of opinion rather than character. We are quick to label someone based on their biases rather than showing kindness or listening and offering time to try and understand. Rarely do we give people the benefit of the doubt. If God were as quick to judge people as we are, no one would be written into the book of life. I'm tired. I'm tired of the judgment that we feel so much of the time. I'm tired of wondering if something I say will cause a friend or a family member to put me in a certain box. I'm tired of worrying about how many views or clicks a reel has on a topic that I disagree with. And I'm sure many of you are tired as well. Can I post this? What will sharing this news article say about my politics? What will not posting that viral video say about my stance? Can people see past our opinions and into the kindness and beauty of our souls? Can that be how we form our reputations? Instead of a type of rating system, what if we lived in a world with more dialogue and less judgment, more conversation towards understanding and less social media posting? What if we asked a question of their position first? Dan et kol ha'adam lechav zchut, Pirkei Avot teaches that you should make for yourself a teacher, acquire for yourself a friend, and judge every person with the scale weighted in their favor. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Be kind, be curious, ask questions. Who knows? You might even realize that they have something to teach you or offer to your perspective. In China, there is something called the social credit system. This is a national credit rating and blacklist implemented by the government of the People's Republic of China. The social credit system is a record system so that businesses, individuals, and government institutions can be tracked and evaluated for trustworthiness. It is not a social credit score based on behavior resulting in punishment if the score is too low. As of 2023, it is a system that focuses on assessing businesses rather than individuals and consists of a database that collects the data on corporate regulation compliance from a number of government agencies. There are red lists and black lists. Red listing incentivizes exemplary personal behavior or business compliance. There are no top-level regulations or guidelines addressing red lists in detail. Red-listed individuals may receive benefits like parking and public transit discounts or discount tourist site tickets, whereas blacklisting is what you might expect, the opposite. It is based on specific instances of misconduct. The court system is available for businesses, organizations, and individuals to appeal their violations. By the end of 2021, over 5 million citizens have been affected by the blacklisting scheme in some form. Public humiliation, mugshots, etc. are used for society to know who is blacklisted, and certain personal information is often displayed. People are being affected by how they are rated, how they are judged, and therefore others treat them differently and begin to demoralize them. If we walked the earth, always expecting a rating for our behavior, we would pay much more attention to our reactions and perceptions of others, rather than focusing on our own personal experience. Imagine for a moment, I'm sure none of you have ever had this experience, of getting into an Uber after a delayed and then canceled and then rebooked flight, getting you to your destination 6 hours later than expected. Your suitcase took 45 minutes to get off the plane, and by the time you get into that Uber, you've been wearing the same clothes for close to 24 hours. No one's ever experienced that, right? You are exhausted and you just want to be home. The Uber driver has music playing that you would have never chosen and an air freshener that is not to your liking. You are just done. So when that tiny little survey comes up at the end of the ride, you lay it all out there. Smelly car, unpleasant environment, and because she didn't roll down the windows, unfriendly driver. Well, because of your grumpy mood, which was completely inward and not based on your Uber driver at all, she now has a bad rating, which can affect her business and future rides. The rating is not based on a list of rules that the driver did or did not follow, and the passenger gets rated as well, based again on individual personalized standards. Is that fair? If we all thought a little bit more about how we are constantly being judged, we would think more deeply about how we judge others and give them the benefit of the doubt, not just a label or a rating based on one experience. And possibly, even more importantly, we might change our actions due to teshuva for our responses or come up with a different way to behave on the anonymous interwebs. Today, we walk around labeling people as left-leaning or right-leaning, as anti-Zionist, pro-Palestinian, or Zionist, as that generation, too young and naive to understand, or too old, too set in their ways and will not change. Religious, secular, observant. We have misconceptions of what those labels mean, and I can promise you that you are mislabeling people who you have yet to have a conversation with. Or the labels are not allowing you to sit down and learn more about them than that one point of view that you have. You are taking a harsher, judgmental stand on people you do not know than God does with human beings on Rosh Hashanah. Not all millennials are naive. Not all Gen Zers are anti-Zionists. Not all boomers are pro-one-state solution. Not all Republicans love our current government. Not all Democrats are pro-Palestinian. Not all Jews agree with the current Israeli government. Not all Palestinians are anti-Israel. Not all rabbis love all aspects of Judaism. Not all Israelis support the war in Gaza. We cannot categorize people based on our judgment of their race, religion, culture, political background, place of origin, or current home. It is dividing up the human race, and it is causing harm and not harmony. We are fighting wars because we cannot sit down and talk to people who are not like us. We are labeling random parts of society conservative or liberal in order to distance ourselves from laws and people and changes that make us feel angry, uncomfortable, or unsafe. This reflex to categorize and punish turns our assumed disagreements into exile, moving us further and further away from the Jewish principle of Kol Yisrael Aravim Ze Bazeh, which may be written for Jews, but should be understood as everyone who I encounter and who is affected by my actions. We should be taking care of one another, no matter their religion, race, or status, and yet we are causing our own demise as a human race because we believe it is more important to be right than to be kind. Mi ha'ish hechafetz chaim ohev yamim lirot tov. Who is the person who delights in life, who loves days and sees the good? Netzor leshoncha me'ra usfatecha midaber mirma. A person who guards their tongue from evil and their lips from deceitful speech. Sur me'ra ve'aseh tov bakesh shalom verodfehu. Who shuns from evil and does good, seeks peace and pursues it. The Kliyakar comments on this section of Psalm 34 that if it is life that you seek, look towards the good, to do that which is good in the eyes of God. And why is good not mentioned first? For it is through the good actions that one merits life. The answer is that it comes to warn us not to do that which is good in God's eyes only in order to live, but rather to live in order to do that which is good. A person should not seek life for material gain, but only in order to spend life treating others with kindness and by being good. If we keep a distance from those who disagree with us, we are not fully pursuing life. We are living in an echo chamber. If we cannot sit with someone and disagree nicely without feeling the need to judge them, we are not pursuing peace. If we keep pushing people into certain boxes, we will never find safe spaces to disagree and we will surely shut out the younger and next generations from feeling like they can be in any space. Disagreement does not need to mean disconnection. It can and must mean creation. As Soloveitchik says, teshuvah is the act of recreating self, reconnecting with ourselves and therefore with others based on the change. Pain and passion can and should be welcomed in conversation. Sometimes it will lead to new understanding or to compromise. Sincerity, not malintention, should be assumed. For 3 years, Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel disagreed. Halalu omrim halacha kemotenu, v'halalu omrim halacha kemotenu. These said, the halacha is in accordance with our opinion, and these said, the halacha is in accordance with our opinion. Ultimately, a divine voice emerged and proclaimed, both these and those are the words of the living God. Elu ve'elu divrei Elohim chaim hen. And the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Beit Hillel. The Gemara asks, since both these and those are the words of the living God, why did Beit Hillel merit to have the halacha established in accordance to him? Mipnei ma zechu Beit Hillel likboa halacha kemotan. The reason is that they were agreeable and forbearing, and they teach both their own statements and the statements of Beit Shammai. Moreover, when they formulated their teachings and cited a dispute, they prioritized the statements of Beit Shammai to their own statements, with humility and deference to Beit Shammai. If one person says, no, I'm right, and the other says, no, I'm right, like the Bat Kol said, no one's right, because you are not listening to the other. Sarah Hurwitz, in her new book, which is beautiful and you should all read it, As a Jew, shares after teaching this text that as I scroll through social media, I sometimes find myself toggling between how dare they think that, self-righteous outrage, and yes, preach, triumphalism. She says, I rarely walk away thinking differently than I did before I picked up my phone. But when I study texts with a chavruta, that person almost always sees things I miss and has insights that lead me to refine and sometimes change my position. I usually walk away feeling sharper and maybe even a little wiser. We could just click and move on, whether a reaction on social media or a personal rating, or we could sit down with someone, have a conversation, listen to their opinions, and maybe even learn something. I believe that most people in the world are good, which means that those with whom I disagree should not appear to be a threat or an obstacle. To be different does not mean to be in opposition. The fact that we will not discuss our disagreements is at least lazy, if not close-minded. And that's because as a society, we have prioritized the desire to be right over the value of being kind. This year, we must reject the instinct to score and sort. We need to stop rating people by hashtags and headlines and affiliations. We need to stand up in the Beit Midrash or the sanctuary and speak our mind, even when it is hard to do so, and do so because we know that we are surrounded by people who will be kind and welcoming to us, even and especially when they disagree with what we have to say. We must have the humility to admit that no one has the whole picture and that the only way we can fully understand is to say to someone, tell me more, and listen with a kind and an open heart. We will not all agree, and I'm not asking us to. That would be naive. The Talmud records many debates that do not end in agreement. This suggests we are meant to learn from the competing discourse. But it might also teach us that not all contests are winnable or losable. They might remain unresolved beyond our lifetime. We cannot judge before we know. And just as we prepare to stand before God as our best selves, may we find a way this year to always approach relationships and learning with kindness and curiosity, bringing our best self forward, not reflex to like or dislike. May we see each other through the lens of teshuvah, rather than labeling or scoring the person who is beating their chest next to you. We are ready for work and repair. It is better to be nice than right. Shana Tova.
You've been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast website or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information on Temple Beth Am, Los Angeles, please visit www.tbala.org.